Hello, guys. Thank you for having us.
Hello.
Thanks, Laura, for joining me. I think I also need to thank somebody at the IAB for what is either an AI or a Photoshop glam up that I got on that photo. I definitely don't own that suit, I can tell you that much anyway. So thank you very much. Look, we are here today to have a bit of a discussion. We've got some data, obviously, around validating the role of out-of-home in the programmatic media mix. We've heard quite a bit about that already as well, like from lots of different sources, and yeah, hopefully got some really interesting data to talk through here today. Now, ultimately, what we see, when we're kind of looking at this, is programmatic out-of-home, absolutely a driving force in driving sustainable growth. And I think before we get into it, it's probably worthwhile just to kind of put a bit of context out there. So we'll start off with some data here from the WFA Global CMO Survey, and I think probably the majority of people would agree with this one, that there's been quite a significant shift in the amount of scrutiny being kind of appended and put onto marketers, with 82% saying that they feel under a lot more scrutiny, the budget's under a lot more scrutiny than a year ago. And almost as a byproduct of that, what we're seeing is 50% admitting to short-term objectives and risk management now taking precedence over long-term brand building. Laura, at TNT, are you seeing a lot of that? Does that kind of resonate well?
Yeah, so we're certainly seeing a lot more caution in the market coming from our clients and from marketers generally. We're hearing they're getting a lot of pressure from the C-suite when it comes to really scrutinizing those budgets. We're working to a lot more short-term planning cycles as well, and they're really looking for the media that they're planning to be more flexible, able to pivot when needed, and also they're also looking for it to be more accountable. So with more advanced attribution is where they're really focusing their need, and with that is turning them to more short-term metrics, wanting to be linking the media and upper funnel and lower funnel to the business outcomes as well. So
no, amazing. I mean, we're definitely seeing a lot of that as well in all of the conversations that we're having, and I think, the risk that you've got, when you kind of shift your focus, when 50% are beginning to focus exclusively on those kind of short-term cycles, is this kind of doom loop, this kind of like inflation that we're seeing in those cost per clicks and kind of leads in those lower funnel performance metrics, and that risk of not planning for the future. So moving on, obviously, when we're talking about driving sustainable growth, when we're looking at building brands longer term, this isn't a kind of new concept by any means in regards to looking towards those future-facing demand. We often talk about only 5% of any given market being in market right now, whereas actually driving that demand, driving sustainable growth over an extended period of time, it's vitally important to be kind of focusing more on that broader spectrum, that broader audience there. And for that reason, and some of the data that we're going to kind of get through into a minute, I think programmatic out-of-home is extremely well placed. Digital out-of-home in general, but specifically in programmatic out-of-home, where you can utilize data in order to inform where you've got high indexing, where you've got high concentrations of a given audience at any given hour of the day, but still having that positive effect in that one-to-many medium where you can begin to kind of branch out and reach a lot more people rather than just on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, and what we're definitely seeing here with this focus on this 5% is a real over-reliance in those bottom of the funnel media like search and social. So what we're seeing with that doom loop that you mentioned is there is this sort of trap that marketers tend to fall into where they're so focused on those short-term metrics and that ROI that what they're seeing is the correlation between their ad investment and their new client growth is starting to diminish, and they're starting to hit those stagnation points and that saturation point with those short-term performance metrics like PMAX and things like that. So what we're looking to do is work with clients to overcome and foresee those points of saturation and look to be filling that upper funnel. And programmatic is a great way in which we've been able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, amazing. And I think you made a great point there as well. it's about incrementality, not just duplication in that kind of period as well. And again, in a one-to-many medium, I think very well placed in order to deliver on that. So just a little bit more context, a little bit more data to kind of support what we're going to get into here. We, as an omnichannel DSP, often see that really the best use, that best driving force of driving incrementality and sustainable growth over time is that mix of both long-term strategy combined with, obviously, performance marketing. You do still need to be able to convert those that are in market right now, but it's about getting that blend right. And this study here from Analytic Partners, ROI Genome, a really interesting one, looking at a vast amount of data and brands that had exclusively been focusing on a performance strategy that then switched to a hybrid strategy of branding and performance, seeing a median average of a 90% increase in ROI. And on the flip side of that, those that had been investing and running strategies across performance and branding and switching to an exclusive performance strategy, actually seeing a 40% reduction in ROI. So again, just plenty of data kind of illustrating that getting that blend between your upper funnel and your lower funnel, driving brand equity, and then converting those once they become in market is ultimately that sweet spot that we're looking for. Now, we very much believe at the Trade Desk that omnichannel is a driving force in doing that. We've heard that as well from numerous different speakers on the stage today. And we ran a study, some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may have seen a bit of this at Cairns Crocs, a neuroscience study. And Australia was actually the third kind of country territory that we'd run this in. We're seeing very similar results across Europe and the US as well. And I think worth just touching on quickly, when we talk to omnichannel, what we're talking about here is a very kind of intentional, concerted effort in order to construct the way that messages are delivered and received by that audience, typically using data to do that, rather than the kind of alternative of that being a multi-channel campaign where you might be running multiple channels at the same time, but with no kind of data bringing that all together and kind of telling a more cohesive story. And interestingly enough, what we saw is in those omni-channel campaigns and those connected campaigns, we saw a 1.5x in the persuasiveness of the message that's being delivered. And again, that was kind of amplified by immersion and persuasiveness, and the immersion and attention being a kind of key metric and contributing factor there as well. Now, what's interesting when comparing these studies that we ran in Australia, in the UK, and in the US, is actually in Australia we see a lot more of those media moments occurring outside of the home. Now, barring the last 3 weeks that have been absolutely terrible, we typically have it pretty good from a weather perspective, tend to live a much more kind of outgoing and outside lifestyle. So those kind of key outdoor moments, obviously, being out in public transport, night out, driving, exercising, and the likes as well. So 64% of those moments, those media moments, occurring outside of the home in Australia versus a global average of 58%, which is really kind of interesting, I think, when kind of comparing global data.
Yeah, and it's something that we've definitely found as a great way to sell into clients and talk to clients about getting into an audience-first mindset. Getting into these contextual environments and having those overlays really allows us to speak to the audience in a way, especially using DCO and things like that, really opens up those opportunities as well.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. Ultimately, in marketing, all we're trying to do is get the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And in order to do that, we need to be investing and over-indexing where people are spending the majority of their time, which here in Australia certainly indexes in out-of-home media environments. So moving on specifically to digital out-of-home, I mean, very interestingly, we see this high immersion specifically in this research that we saw, that 1.4 times in greater attention where audiences were exposed to digital out-of-home in combination with other channels, and 1.2 greater immersion when exposed to programmatic out-of-home and additional channels. And kind of the feedback that we got from the research was really about the power of out-of-home in priming other channels. And again, this isn't the first time we've heard this today, but it's that memory encoding that programmatic out-of-home does in this kind of less intrusive way, in this one-to-many environment, that absolutely seems to kind of trigger this piece within the consumer. So again, a lot of the kind of research and suggestions that came back from this study were around priming at a macro level in regards to how early on in your plan your out-of-home is live. Obviously, again, we've heard about the impact of the creative, and you might need to prime some of that in TV and that combination of audio and visual first. But as early on as possible, getting your out-of-home out there, and then its ability to effectively prime all of the other channels. We see this increase in effectiveness across other channels if exposed to out-of-home first. And again, at a micro level, seeing a very similar thing. If we're looking at people on not over a campaign duration, but over a kind of daily basis, again, the recommendations from the study being to kind of start with out-of-home and then to increase the effectiveness of other channels throughout the day. Do you guys often kind of consider this in your planning and strategy pieces?
With the priming effect?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have been implementing a lot of that with our clients in terms of digital out of home and how it really does resonate with the audiences. Whereas the likes of viewing habits across TV, for example, have started to fragment and change with the rise of streaming and AVOD, where out of home still remains that sort of less disruptive, but really adding to the experience of a user, of a viewer. And what we do find is that when we combine out of home with other media in the mix, we can really drive them through the funnel and prime them to really take through that message. And we'll see that in some of the examples that we're going to speak to soon.
Amazing. So look, I mean, we've kind of spoken to it here. This neuroscience study that we've done is very much about the kind of cognitive load and the cognitive impact higher up in the funnel. But this is corroborated by data that we've got out of the platform as well. So this is global data that we see in the platform. For those that have been running omni-channel campaigns, including programmatic out of home with a pixel down on site and measuring CPA. And the results here is this compounding reduction in CPA for each additional channel that somebody is exposed to. I think this is fascinating, and again, I think to the point that was made in the introduction, it's out of home has this priming effect throughout the funnel. It does it extremely well from an awareness perspective, from a kind of reduction in cognitive load and the likes, but also very much down at the bottom end of the funnel in consideration and performance there as well. So, I think a lot of this, and again, this is data here from the WISC Tracksuit and Perpetua. I think the priming effect that we see, and again, speaking to that kind of context that we had earlier on around making sure that you're speaking to that 95% of your audience that aren't in market right now. But what we're seeing here is that for those brands that have high awareness, those that have at least 51% awareness amongst their audience, for every dollar that they're spending in those performance channels, such as search and social, they're seeing expedited growth and performance kind of happening there, versus those brands that have low awareness. So again, if you don't have the awareness to begin with, those performance dollars aren't going to work as hard for you. Again, kind of really just speaking to the data that we had in regards to that omni-channel piece from neuroscience and platform data there as well. And this is going on to actual data that we've run with you here as well for one of your clients. Do you keen to give us a bit of a breakdown on that?
Yeah, of course. We were working, so this is a recent campaign we executed with ResMed. So this was to amplify their partnership with the British and Irish Lions tour in Australia. Wonder if any of you followed that. Go the Lions.
I got soaked. I got absolutely soaked on that Saturday game. It's horrific. Yeah.
And so the role of out of home in this mix was really to drive that awareness amongst rugby fans. And so we employed a planning approach which really allowed us to hone into those key moments where we can really speak to rugby fans and follow the migration throughout the tour. So we incorporated through the trade desk some audience targeting through third-party overlays. We also applied proximity targeting to ResMed clinics. And then as we moved through the tour and through towards game day, we were really able to be selective in the types of panels that we wanted to be present on, but also building that awareness up front and then drilling down through that targeting through to game day. And how the game day we were able to execute that was really follow that audience as they move through into and out of stadium. We can make sure that we're in front of them through those key transport hubs, in key roadside routes into and out of the stadium, and really amplify their experience of the tour and resonate with them on the ground. So this was something that was really key for us. The level of flexibility that we get through planning in this way enabled us to optimize in real time, and also what we were able to do is remarket to those exposed through out of home through display and bring them down the funnel to complete a sleep assessment, which ultimately is the goal for ResMed, is to drive their audience through to take up a sleep assessment and for sleep apnea. Yeah, amazing. So I mean, you kind of ticked all the boxes there, right? Like nice, smooth, easy planning experience, being able to be extremely selective in regards to the geo placements and the strategies that you guys were putting together there, and then honing in throughout the day, that audience migration and kind of following them on the screens throughout the day in order to have that contextual and creative element that we obviously heard about earlier as well. Definitely. And great to see. Again, corroborates all of the data that we've been speaking to, that it works. It ultimately was driving, as we can see here, for those that were exposed to the programmatic out of home and display, and then went on to click on a search term, we saw a 159% increase in conversions. And same on Meta there, an 86% increase in completed sleep assessments there as well. So, you know, that's not just site visits, is it? That's actual sleepers. And they're chunky. They're like 15 minutes they're or up something. To 15 minutes of survey. So what we're really capturing here is high intenders, that a higher quality kind of lead, which are great proof points for clients like ResMed that want to be trialing media like out of home, but need to see beyond reach and frequency and impression metrics. So this helps to really drive that home, that their audience is resonating with the message, and that intending to complete through to a sleep assessment is great to see.
Amazing, a strong primer again, and I guess just a little bit more data to support in that as well. When compared to, I guess this is more device than channel here, but again, when exposed to programmatic out at home prior to starting the sleep assessment, you actually saw a far higher completion rate versus those other devices.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the quality of the audience that we're reaching through those third-party data overlay and that's contextual targeting that we're implementing through the campaign.
Amazing. And I think the last one that I've got here, I mean, again, so we've kind of spoken to the role that out of home plays within the kind of broader omnichannel piece. It primes, it plays a role at every single part of the funnel. It does fantastically for cognitive load. It delivers on performance metrics as well. We've talked about the ease of being able to access and the speed of which you can kind of pick, as well as the granularity and kind of specificness that you can pick out those screens and deliver with as well. And I think, you know, a lot of that obviously speaks both to digital out of home and to programmatic out of home. And there obviously are some additional kind of opportunities there. I mean, this is a fantastic use of utilising, very similar to you guys, this is a separate case study here, utilising purchase intent data, which again, we heard a little bit about on one of the previous panels. And what we're seeing is when using purchase intent data, again, considering that audience migration throughout the day, what are the top 25% of screens on any given hour of the day that over-index against a specific audience with specific behaviours? And seeing, again, like huge numbers, huge kind of efficiencies being driven, 6.9x on site visits, 5.8x on engagements, and on actual leads, again, that big chunky piece, that 13.5x in number of leads. So, again, marginal gains to be had, dependent on the kind of data that's being ingested and utilised in order to optimise there as well. And that's that. How do we do for time, Gay? I know you, yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you. We could do questions, if there's any questions.
Any questions? You like chatting out there.
I just wanted to know if you had any more commentary. One of the earlier slides said that 50% of marketers are putting budget towards seeing as though the data was pulled in 2025, I wanted to know if there was any more you could say on what those risks they're trying to manage, they're putting budget towards, and if any of them are new that we haven't seen before.
So that research was, I believe, it was the CMO survey. So that's not one of ours personally. I mean, I could hazard a guess, but I certainly wasn't. We didn't kind of commission that research myself. But I mean,
Apologies.
that's all right. But I mean, look, I think we can all speak to some of the kind of macroeconomics of the time. I mean, you've mentioned as well the far shortened planning kind of cycles that you're witnessing with your clients when we're looking at tariffs and wars and the likes like that. I think all of that obviously has an impact on consumer confidence, and then ultimately that all bleeds downhill in downward pressure on CMOs and the likes in order to deliver shorter term metrics and performance. You're welcome.
I've got a question here. Very, very good. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Where can we download this study?
Which study in particular?
Well,
All of it?
Yeah, well, no, the slides that you presented.
Sure, I can send them over to you, no problem.
We'll be sharing
Okay,
all the
great.
links.
No,
that-
thank
yeah.
you. Very,
Yeah.
very good stuff. Very insightful.
You're very welcome.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.